You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. Live every single Tuesday night, right here on all the social medias. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our... No, he's got a new name now. What is that new name?
I don't remember.
Something vanilla.
It's new name. Vanilla.
We gotta look it up.
Vanilla Steam.
I think that's it. Vanilla
that it?
Steam.
When did that happen? I don't remember that at all.
And
Was that on last week's podcast?
no. He sent it to us in a text.
I don't remember it.
We'll pull up the text.
Yeah.
We gotta pull it up.
I don't know. I don't believe you.
He sent it to us this week in a text.
Oh my gosh.
He just had a little bit of coffee and went nuts.
And nuts. I didn't have any nuts.
No, and went nuts.
Went nuts.
What are you eating? Oh, that's cough drops.
Yeah.
I
I
thought you
want to
were
make
eating
sure I'm not hacking into the microphone.
one of those toxic warheads from
It's a Ricola.
next door. One of them really sour. Sean, you got it pulled up?
No, I don't.
Yeah, full. All right, I'll pull it up.
I missed that text entirely.
I just love that right before I went to go hit stream.
I forgot.
Y'all were in here singing "Suddenly Seymour."
Yeah.
From Little Shop of
No.
Horrors.
No, we were actually singing the dentist song. We started.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. We started with Suddenly Seymour, but we actually sang like the full first refrain of You'll Be a Dentist. So.
See, this
Yeah.
is the problem with our text threads is we text
so
so
long.
often
Yeah,
that I can't get
they're
back
so
to
long. So long.
I'm looking at the one where the fat dude honks the horn.
Yeah, I don't.
It was back there. Crap. It wasn't that long ago, I feel like. We'll find it during... Oh, there it is. Vanilla Steam.
Vanilla
that was
Steam.
it. It was Vanilla Steam.
Okay.
You were like, this is my new podcast name. I don't know. What were you checking out where it was said Vanilla Steam? It looked like one of those...
Steam.
It was I was at my in-laws' house, and she had in the bathroom, on the bathroom counter, was a paint swatch.
That's what I was thinking.
And
okay.
it's a paint swatch of a color called Vanilla Steam.
And you just thought,
And I was like, dude, that's my podcast name, Vanilla Steam. Either that, or it's about to become my ID on Call of Duty.
Oh,
There
that'd be
you
a
go.
good one.
I might have to change it from Spook Mag to Vanilla Steam.
I like Spook Mag. That's a
All
good
I
one.
know
That's a
was
good
that
one.
this video you sent of this Gordo Loco in that truck was amazing. When he started honking that horn.
If there ain't 280, there ain't a lady. I swear, man.
When he
was
started
cracking me
honking that
up.
horn, I lost it.
He
I
started
lost it.
bouncing up and down that truck, honking a horn with his belly. But
yeah.
dude is huge. That dude, that's one of those dudes that eats like 24 donuts for breakfast, and he ain't done yet. That's just the appetizer. It's insane. I hope I don't get that big.
Hashtag one day.
Hashtag one day. I've got some big running events coming up. The Triple Crown just released its
Nice.
new packages.
Gonna be
I'm already
doing
signed
some
up for the mini.
Running.
That's right.
Gotta
Gotta get Finn.
everywhere.
I got to find a woman. 2022 has not been my lucky year. I got to find a woman.
Aren't you
making
supposed
some
to be
babies.
married next year?
It's coming.
I said I'd have a woman by the end of the year.
I thought you said you were going to be married.
I
You
never
were
said
engaged
married.
to be married.
He
or something.
said I would at least have the woman that I was gonna marry.
I remember something about marriage. Not this
Yeah.
year. I thought it was like next year or
Actually,
something
okay,
crazy.
I
don't
think I
remember.
said I would find somebody.
We
that,
need to pull this back up.
I think I said I was gonna be engaged by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was.
Hoping that if I didn't, because I always set my
Well,
sights
you're not.
higher, that I would find the woman that I would be engaged to.
Well, maybe.
So.
You could still pull that off in a month and a half, maybe.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's that kind of season where everybody wants
Love is
somebody
in
for
the
the
air.
holidays. You know,
You'll find your queen. Don't worry.
there you go, Queen Bey. She's out there.
Everything going to be all right.
That's right. I was trying to work it in there.
It's coming. We got a review.
Big movie on the block.
Very big movie on the block. It's raked in tons of money, which obviously it's Marvel. There's no surprise there.
Yep.
But I feel like I was going to say like some mixed responses, but not really. The general consensus is very positive, but I feel like I still want to say mixed responses from.
If you follow Marvel, I think the general consensus,
Marvel fan base is not the general audience love it, general critics love it, but I think the actual like the hardcore Marvel fans are still very much burnt out. So, and I think we'll point out a few reasons for that in our review. But yeah, we reviewed Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and I guess we should just get right into it.
I was gonna say, there's nothing more to say. I mean, the review will tell us. So let's roll that review.
Wakanda Forever. Yes, the sequel to the first superhero film ever nominated for Best Picture has arrived, with critics calling it the best Marvel film of Phase 4, though that isn't saying much. Also, being the end to Phase 4, Marvel's Black Panther: Wakanda Forever has a lot to live up to. After a mixed bag of releases since Avengers Endgame, the passing of Chadwick Boseman, and being the sequel to what many consider one of the best MCU films. It's no secret we at Red Moon did not hold the first Black Panther film in as high esteem as most, though we still gave it a favorable review. While we didn't think it deserved a Best Picture nomination, it was still entertaining. History is repeating itself, as much of the same can be said about Wakanda Forever. It is one of Phase 4's better efforts, again, not saying much, but like its predecessor, I feel it is being overhyped. Whether it's due to politics, high fan devotion from the first film, or for being a final tribute to the late Chadwick Boseman, critics and audiences alike are caught up in the hype, but all of Wakanda Forever's emotional draws are only surface level. While there are some decent tributes to Boseman, the best of which is reserved for the film's end, with characters' emotion and reflection on everything from what Boseman's T'Challa represented, the loss of family, and science versus faith, there were plenty of rich themes and elements for the film to deep dive into. Introducing longtime comic fan favorite Namor, played by Tenoch Huerta, Marvel's first mutant and one of the first superpowered characters, alongside relatively new character Riri Williams, aka Ironheart, portrayed by Dominique Thorne, the film juggles way too much. Trying to reflect on the loss of Boseman, introducing two new major characters from the comics, alongside the history of Namor and his people, giving Letitia Wright's Shuri an appropriate character arc, and an unnecessary subplot involving Martin Freeman's Everett Ross and Julia Louis-Dreyfus's Valentina De Fontaine. With so much ground to cover, the pacing suffers, and no single plotline or character is allowed to be explored in depth. Wakanda Forever isn't a total bust, though. I appreciated a lot of what Coogler was trying to do narratively. It's clear what he is going for with many of the plot points and emotional moments, and most fans will probably be fine with what is presented on screen. But I personally am tired of Marvel teasing richer themes, but falling back on the bare minimum or what's easy. Add on top of this moments with shoddy special effects and production value, humdrum fight choreography, and poorly executed visual ideas, such as the use of marine animals in battle, much like the first film's use of rhinos, and we have a movie that at its best is more of the same from Marvel, and at its worst, a collection of too much crammed into one film. With a tighter script and room for the characters to breathe and really explore the major themes presented, Coogler could have made a powerhouse film that really would have stood as one of Marvel's best. But as is, the best of Phase 4 still pales in comparison to most of the Infinity Saga. I give Black Panther: Wakanda Forever 2.5 out of 4 stars.
All right.
That's not the huge praise. I know it's like, I think 90 something.
We got cough drops. He's got plenty.
I ain't got many left. Those are expensive. You can't have them.
Wow.
Ricola.
It's funny. The lady.
They are the best.
There was an elderly woman sitting next to me in the theater, and she gave me a cough drop. It was very kind of her.
The elderly lady sitting on the other side of me fell asleep and
Brandon
snored through all the movie.
Oh,
it is a very slow paced and dull movie.
That was my biggest complaint.
Yeah.
I ended up giving it, let's go around the table, I gave it 2 out of 4 stars. Sean, what about
1.5.
Oh, wow. You dropped it to 1.5.
Yep.
I didn't think, I mean, it landed right in the middle of the Phase 4 movies for me. I didn't think it was necessarily bad. Like, I mean, I just thought they tried to cram too much into it. There was characters that weren't needed, plot points that weren't needed. They really should have, I think, they should have focused solely on Shuri becoming, spoiler alerts, like her kind of becoming this next main character, which makes sense. And then focused on Namor, because those are your two like bigger elements, and there's a lot to unpack with Namor. And in the comics, like he comes from Atlantis. In this, it's Talokan, because they switched it to more of a Mesoamerican type.
He's kind of like an Aztec or Mayan or something weird like that.
From my understanding, the reason the switch is to avoid comparisons with Aquaman, who is also from Atlantis and DC Comics. Yeah. Now that doesn't. Obviously, what they went with, I think there's more than just that. Obviously, the fact that they picked, because the character has more of a Greek Latin type background. Atlantis is a Greek myth. His name Namor is Roman backwards. That's actually how the creator came up with that name.
No, it's not. It's no amor.
It's
no love.
Namor. Yeah, I hated that.
Yeah, no more.
They tried. They tried too hard to force
everybody
that.
in the movie was calling him Namor except for himself, because he did the Namor thing, and I'm just like, okay, this is dumb because you're not even being consistent with it. Most fans, I think, know him as Namor. That's how Stan Lee pronounced it, and all the cartoons growing up said Namor. So I'm not saying Namor. It's stupid.
I don't know the character, but I did read about that.
The winged feet, even though, is like that's a very like it's a Roman type. So
I immediately thought of the Greek god like Achilles or like.
And that's more of what his background should have been. And I understand changing it to avoid comparisons with Aquaman, but at the same time, I think there's enough of that character that's different on his own that you didn't really have to go that route. Other than maybe changing just the name of Atlantis to something else. You could have done that. But yeah, that's not even one of my bigger gripes. I just felt like there's no point where any character or plot point gets the depth that it needed for this movie to shine, because there's just too much going on, in my opinion. You introduce Ironheart and don't really do any, like her whole character and arc was unnecessary.
Nope.
She served as a MacGuffin to pit Namor and Wakanda against each other, but you could have used anything as that MacGuffin. You could have left her out entirely and had Everett Ross, played by Martin Freeman, made him that MacGuffin. That way you gave his character more to do.
Well, in a way, they kind of did use him as a little bit. So you had two of them.
Yes. And it's just, even the set pieces I thought didn't look as good as the first movie. The first movie had gripes about some of the CGI looking bad. I thought this one actually had worse moments. Yeah. Ironheart's suit I thought was ridiculous looking. Yeah. Even compared to the comics, like they went way like the first Marvel movies, like Iron Man, would take something from the comics and give it something more of a realistic adaptation, so it would look good on screen. Ironheart in this movie doesn't even look like the comics. Like, they made it look even goofier, in my opinion. I was like, the comic looked more realistic than this, which is kind of a way like of a backstep. So I just felt like there was just too much of this movie where Marvel's like, well, everybody accepts we're Marvel now, we can do whatever we want. And I'm like, no, you still have to make it believable to the world you've set up.
Agreed. No, I couldn't agree more. Sean, what about you?
I gave it 1.5 because this movie bored me to death. It was a struggle to stay awake, and I saw that it wasn't like I was up at midnight at some late night release. We saw this right after dinner time.
Yep.
In the middle of the
Friday,
evening.
yeah.
It was torture for me to stay awake through this movie, and I think for a film that's supposed to be another one of these movies that just like Black Panther was, where it's like, yes, we're going to get the African American community to come out and just fill the theaters to see this movie, and the black woman next to me is falling asleep and snoring.
She's snoring, yeah.
She didn't even care.
She did, yeah.
And so I just and that doesn't speak for everybody in the theater, but I was bored. I didn't think there was anything compelling about the story. I didn't care. It didn't even make me feel anything about Chadwick Boseman not being in this movie.
Actually, yes.
And that's what really hurt the most. It starts the movie out with this, it throws you right in him dying of this unknown illness, which I get what they're trying to do with that, because nobody he worked with knew that he had cancer. And I get that they're throwing this unknown illness that they can't cure. They don't ever show his body or anything like that, which I'm fine with that. I actually think it would have been a little bit better if they could have just put a body on a table and put his face on it with CGI and showed at least his face.
I actually respected that they didn't do the CGI thing at all.
I get the respect aspect of it, but if you're going to throw us in that quickly to his death and it's just unexplained illness, I can't figure out how to fix it, and then that's it. And then they spend so little time, you mentioned it in your review, so little time setting her up to become the hero that she's going to become. And it's in the trailer. In the trailer, you see the Black Panther has a feminine physique, so you know it's a female.
Most people expected it because, I mean, she does follow him in the comics.
I don't feel like I'm spoiling it is what I'm saying. But they throw her in at the very end. She has no training whatsoever like her brother did. She's not a warrior like her brother was. She's a intellectual and a scientist. And you throw her in this suit and she becomes the Black Panther, which I think is crazy because even in the first movie, he gets the suit, but he's not the best Black Panther yet. He has to become that. Yeah. And she's just thrusted into it and immediately adapts to that and becomes this hero. I thought the villain was weak.
A thread,
oh my God!
Real quick, I'll let you get back to that, but there's definitely a thread there with just female power in general.
No doubt. Throughout the whole film.
Oh, yeah.
And I think touching on that, like, because I never had a problem, even when they first announced Boseman dying, I was like, well, it makes sense because most people liked Shuri's character from the first movie, and I was like, that makes sense that she would pick up that mantle. But I think the way they handled it and the fact that it wasn't just her, they focused on her, they focused on Angela Bassett, they focused on the character of Okoye, played by, I forget the actress name that played Michonne. They throw in Lupita Nyong'o. It's like you have all these characters. They threw in a new character who was useless, and then her only purpose was to reveal that she was gay at the end of the movie.
And then Ironheart.
And then
herself,
Ironheart. And then, okay, so you got 6 of these major feminine characters that are all supposed to be these amazing badasses, but then you don't ever really choose. Like, honestly, Angela Bassett and Shuri, those two would have been the best to focus on because his death would have...
them just do a standout.
His death would have affected them because that's their family. And then, of course, Lupita Nyong'o because she was his love interest. It's like those 3 make sense, but you tried to give equal parts to all these characters that didn't need it. And then you're trying to introduce, again, Namor, who becomes a weaker villain because you don't give him anything.
And not only that, he's redeemed by the end of the movie.
Yep.
You give him another. It's another
and he
freaking
is supposed
Marvel
to be more
villain.
of an anti-villain. He's not supposed to be. So that's kind of
I get it.
anti-hero, but yeah, the way they did it was poorly because it's like, yeah, he's supposed to kind of come to the side of good by the end, even though his methods are not good. But yeah, the whole arc was terrible.
But then at the end, you see that maybe he has motives that are not so good. So it's like it's another villain that you gave a pass to.
Right. I mean, well, here's my ultimate thought, too, is we were supposed to know, with this being the definitive end of Phase 4, something leading to a bigger picture.
I don't think they ever
nothing.
promised that with this movie.
I thought they did.
Okay, hold on. No. They have promised
Quantumania is supposed
multiple
to be
occasions on many different times that every next film is a pivotal entry in what the bigger story is.
They're doing it again, too, with the Thunderbolts. David Hayter or whatever came out, Harbor. He came out and said that the Thunderbolts is going to drop a bomb on the Marvel Universe.
I'm tired of this.
And expose this.
Well, I'm sorry. They continue to set me up for disappointment. For one, again, yes, going back to the chat. Can I have a little bit of comments on it? I haven't spoke at all. But it's like the fact that this movie has been not only touted as becoming like the next big piece because, again, with Chadwick Boseman not returning, and it's the fact that it's kind of supposed to be an emotional send-off. There is a little bit of that, but I too thought at the beginning of the film, it not only feels rushed, but we're immediately thrust into life after Chadwick Boseman. We have no kind of qualms as to, again, any kind of worry as to, okay, he didn't tell it. Them not being angry that he didn't say nothing about it. There was literally just the emotional impact of, oh, he's gone and there's loss.
Yeah.
That was it. There was no heartfelt tugging throughout the film. They were trying to set that up with Shuri and the fact that she herself was supposed to be struggling with this faith/science motivation throughout the film, and that was supposed to be the struggle. And of course, the memory of Chadwick Boseman, and even I'm not going to spoil the other memory she has.
Right.
But it's like she somewhat has this struggle of faith and science because she is a scientist. But yet that doesn't go very deep. And part of the reason is because they thrust in all of these other characters that don't really have a whole lot of screen time to warrant their presence or to build upon a story that is really founded in anything too concrete to be like, okay, yeah, I'm rooting for this person, or oh, this is going to be an interesting fight or struggle. Then yeah, the set that builds into action set pieces that are lukewarm at best.
Copies.
I mean, not only copies, but these are supposed to be. I mean, Marvel is known for at this point having some of the best choreographed CGI fight scenes that you see and why you go to the theater to watch these films. There was none of that in this. They were all slapped together, it felt like. None of them felt... everything felt convenient the way it turned out in a certain direction. Yeah. Nothing felt as if it was planned or portrayed in such a way that it was like, oh, this was a cool little way. You could tell that they thematically planned it to flow from one scene to the next. It just kind of happened. And you could tell that by just the poor shots. I don't know what it was, but it's like the production value was fine. I had no problems with the production value. I thought the costuming and again,
I thought some of it was dull, but yeah.
But ultimately, I thought the reason it was dull was because of the way it was shot. I thought the cinematography was dull. There were certain scenes that were set up. For instance, when Shuri is in her suit underwater, going into this like water tunnel to take her to the city, and I'm sitting here and I was like, just the way it was shot was goofy. Yeah. It wasn't that it was bad or ridiculous or that it was terrible. It wasn't laughable, but it was just, it could have been shot in a much more cinematic way that had more attention to detail and didn't look lazy. Yeah. And that was my problem throughout the whole movie, is I just felt like as it kept going from story beat to story beat, the humor that that I got tired of in Thor Love and Thunder, and I railed on that movie for because it was too much at some points. This didn't have had hardly any. Yeah. There was no likability or banter between the characters to the extent that I thought, oh, okay, that was funny enough. They tried to do that with Ironheart's character. No, she just came off as like a young little nitwit from college that I really didn't care about. Mm-hmm. And again, other than her initial scene that they set her up in, after that, she completely becomes irrelevant. She only becomes
background. Yeah.
She becomes a person that they need her help in battle.
I felt like too, some of the moments where they tried to have a sense of humor, it was mostly comments about race and slavery and things like that. I felt like there was the one line that just made me shake my head was with Martin Freeman in the back of the van. And she goes, "Oh, look, a white man in chains. Thought I'd never see that," or something. And I'm like, if you're expecting me to laugh at that, I'm not laughing at that, especially when it's people like your tribe that actually put people in chains and sold them to white people in real history, not in Wakanda, obviously. But I'm like, this is like, you're trying to say something here that's not funny. And it just didn't, and I don't think it landed with the audience that was in the theater. Nobody laughed.
There.
No,
there was like a few chuckles, but I mean, it was not like a huge laugh. I mean, there was none of that in this movie.
No, there wasn't any levity.
I didn't think there was anything that detracted from people. Again, I don't want to say it's an awful film. I gave it 2 out of 4. I guess it's worth seeing if you're a Marvel fan. I just don't think it's not something you're going to be reinvigorated by. Yeah. I think it's funny because Kevin Smith came out talking about he had tears in his eyes because of the ending scene. And it's just like, I saw one great tweet. It was a woman, and she was like, could you just freaking stop being a crybaby and a wussy at every one of these movies? You do this at every single Marvel film. And I was like, she's got a point. Yeah. I was like, that's all he freaking does anymore.
Infinity War and Endgame, I understand completely. There's moments to cry. But I don't find anything in this movie. And then when you go to this, when you set up this cast of female powerhouse like in the film, and then you end the film, and I'm not going to give away, but they end the film with the possibility of there being another male Black Panther. I'm like, you're not even selling completely into the idea of Black Panther being a woman. You're going to take that away from her in a few years.
I don't think they are. I think they're fully sold on committed on her being Black Panther.
I think they're setting up the future in a sense that when they get down the road far enough, they can have like that boy become.
I'm not saying that she's not going to be in another film in this phase or whatever, but I mean they're setting it up for another male Black Panther, which. And rather quickly.
For a long time to come, though. If you look at if they'd have to jump several years based on the other characters before he becomes relevant.
Yeah. Do we know how many years passed between Black Panther and this film?
I mean, it's real time, I believe. Because, I mean, if you think about even how they aged, I mean, if anything, I could see it being...
remember the 5-year gap where people had been snapped away, too, because that happened in between these movies.
There you go. True. So they're kind of coming back from...
At least 6 or 7 years has passed in between, for sure. I mean, maybe longer, I'm not sure.
And I just didn't feel like those... Again, going back to the T'Challa, like, sending off, I thought, again, the way it was shot. Like the trailer does a better job of selling the emotion.
Oh, yeah.
Of the
Yeah.
loss more so than the movie. Like
Yeah.
I get to the actual part of the movie, and they show some of the same slow motion scenes that they did in the trailer, and I was like, this is not hitting as well as when I watched the trailer did.
Yep.
Like, and even from the goofiness, I hate to say, of like the coffin being lifted up into like the ship, and it was like
spaceship.
the way in which it was shot, it floated and turned and went up, and I was like, it just, I don't know, it may have landed differently for other people. I thought it could have been a lot more emotionally handled, just better. I think ultimately it just failed in that regard. I will agree that I think the final scene, the first post-credit scene,
Yeah.
or the only post-credit scene
Yeah.
in the movie, lands very well.
No,
that
I
was
agree.
to me the most emotional part in the whole movie.
Yep.
It's sad that you just got to wait through.
Only part that I thought was worth sticking around for.
Yeah.
But that's me. I know you guys liked it better than I did. 95% of audience likes it on
I was
Rotten
gonna
Tomatoes.
say, generally, most people did like it. And I do think, I appreciated the themes that were there. I think Ryan Coogler had smart themes that he wanted to explore, like the science versus religion. Shuri's story arc matches Chadwick Boseman's character arc from Civil War, like what they both had to learn was similar, but it was done poorly in this movie. As I definitely saw the ideas he had and how they correlated to past Marvel films and how they correlated to trying to honor Chadwick Boseman. And I was like, I like all the ideas you have in here, but one, there's way too many, and
Too
none
bloated.
and none of them are fleshed out.
Yeah,
It's like
the way
have-
you execute your ideas is not
they
very
were
good.
all
Yeah.
very poorly done, and it's like, and that was I think part of it for me is I appreciated like the narrative ideas he had, but yeah,
At
they
least he
just-
tried.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like
true.
some of the other
That's
Marvel
true.
movies.
No,
True,
actually,
true.
you
They
could
didn't
actually,
try.
this movie was dull, and I thought it was boring. But looking at it, it is 1,000 times smarter than Thor: Love and Thunder or or Multiverse of
Which
Madness.
it's sad that we're giving it credit just for that by being like, hey, that's a one-up. Like it's sad that we're at that point in the MCU now.
Yeah.
We're literally
Yeah.
one phase past Endgame, and we're at the end of it. This was the final film in Phase 4, and we're literally saying, well, at least they didn't go
Their
worse.
strongest two movies was Black Widow, which came way too late, and
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi, which was an origin film. And I'm granted,
No
there's
Way
nothing
Home.
wrong. Yeah, No Way
But
Home.
that's a fan film
But
as well.
again,
Yeah.
that was upfilled like. It was fine. It was great because of the fan nostalgia, but in the grand scheme of things, No Way Home didn't add anything to.
None of them did,
That-
really.
Yeah, didn't add anything to the story
Yeah.
other than play more into the multiverse.
Yeah,
And I know you disagree with this, but Keith, I actually liked, because you texted it to the group this week, and I actually agreed with your ranking.
Oh yeah,
in the order
my Phase
of
4 ranking.
I don't know if I can
just
find
the
it here.
movies. I didn't throw in the Disney Plus series because
we kind of went back.
that
and
would
forth.
just take all day.
No. Well, you can't. Well, it's not like they've mattered either. They've been practically irrelevant because everything they've done in those films
Well, most of those
has
are
either
just-
been
yeah.
another lead up to something big we'll find out later,
Yeah.
or we're going to completely retcon this in the movie that we're now about to show you, a la like WandaVision.
Yeah.
But-
Multiverse of Madness.
yeah, Multiverse of Madness. But let me see. I can't find it.
Pull it. Well, I mean, I could give my ranking. I'm pretty sure, unless I
Yeah,
forget which
if you
ones
still
were on
have
there.
it. It was a good one. I completely agree. Oh, here it is. You said I would rank Phase 4, and I would completely agree with this. No Way Home as the number one because of the fan factor.
And again, it's not even great compared to I think other Marvel movies.
Agreed. Only in this phase. Shang-Chi, Black Widow, Wakanda Forever, Multiverse of Madness, Love and Thunder, and Eternals.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would agree with that. I mean, I do put Wakanda Forever in the middle of
It's
the
like
pack.
right in the middle.
Simply because it's not any worse than what we've seen in this phase. It definitely outperforms those that I think are the worst. But yeah, I mean, 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I think a lot of people saw that runtime and they immediately thought,
Oh, this is going to be...
this is going to be such an ode to T'Challa and to Chadwick Boseman. Like, this is going to be worth the
They saw
emotional
the
weight
runtime
and
and thought
impact.
Marvel was going to pull out the stops, and they didn't.
No, it's just, I'm sorry, too bloated and boring. Like the emotional, it just felt very weighted. But ultimately, too, I'm just glad that we're done with this phase. I'm still got a sour taste in my mouth for what's to come with Marvel.
Yeah.
I'm not looking forward to the next thing. I'm just not.
I feel like they maybe set a tone for what's coming by just the fact that they called Namor a mutant and that they might be leading into the mutant world. But
and I think it was you, Keith, that had mentioned, because I thought the same thing. This is the first time in the movies they've mentioned the word mutant. But then
I think
No,
so.
this is the first time in the movies they've mentioned
right,
the word.
but
word
in,
mutant,
but in
yeah.
the show, you said in what show it was?
They hinted at mutants in Ms. Marvel, and
Yeah.
then of course you saw in Multiverse of Madness. But I mean, this is the first time I think they stated, mutant.
Because Miss Marvel is a mutant, right?
In the show, she's
Yes.
an Inhuman in the comics, but they flipped that.
Yeah. Because she was mutated by.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that.
No. That's
I think it's
yeah.
goofy, but again, hearing that word used in the movie made me think, okay, here we're.
And he does. He has in the comics. He has the X gene. That's where the wings. Because they changed his origin
Isn't
in this,
he
but
the first mutant or something? I think you were
he's
telling
Marvel's
me that.
first mutant. Yeah. Well, he's one of their very first super-powered heroes. I think he's like the second after Human Torch, because he was. They came out in the 30s. But yeah, that's how long he's been around. But he has a human mother and an Atlantean father. I may have that mixed, kind of like Aquaman's origin, where one's human. And they changed that, obviously, I think, again, to avoid comparisons. But then he also had the X gene. So, that's why he's not blue like everybody else, because that's part of his human side. But then the wings and stuff come from the mutations.
Well, one thing I read, too, and I didn't read the full article to hear the explanation, but the headline was talking about the reason that his followers are not blue when they're underwater. They're only blue when they leave the water.
That was in the movie. I don't remember that being a thing in the comics.
Yeah,
and
in the movie, they're normal color underwater.
Yes.
Out of the water, they turn blue.
And I kept wondering about that because
So-
I was like, I think they're blue all the time.
He's not
again-
blue out of the water.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
he's never
Or,
blue in the
or
comics.
even under, and I thought it was just something like they were doing with the color grading.
Yeah,
I thought they were
I kept-
just for some reason.
No, I think it's
not
something
making
like
them
when
blue.
they leave the water, they're not
But I'm
oxygenated or
pretty
something.
sure
I
there
don't
are
know.
in the comics they're always blue because that kept throwing me off in the movie. I'm like,
Yeah.
why did
They
they
didn't
keep
want to
going back
confuse it with Avatar.
The underwater scenes in this movie were terrible.
They were.
Like, look at
I agree.
Aquaman and how comic-y and goofy Aquaman can be with them riding sharks and stuff.
But it doesn't look as bad.
It looks so much better underwater.
You know what this reminded me of? When I watched this, I was like, this reminds me of the scene of him underwater in Zack Snyder's Batman v Superman, where he's like,
Yes.
where it looks like,
Yes.
where it
Comes
looks
up
like
out of the-
when it looks like he's holding his breath.
Yes.
And like it looks so much better in his own movie with James Wan. Like he did a good job of them being underwater. This reminded me of Zack Snyder's attempt where everybody looks like they're trying to hold their breath underwater. I'm like,
Yeah.
y'all can breathe underwater. Why does it look like y'all are trying
Right.
to go down?
Yeah.
They're all just
Creature
doing
from the Black Lagoon.
and they're
coming
not
out.
even like really swimming. Like that's the one
No.
thing in Aquaman. It looks like how
Yeah.
people who live underwater would swim underwater. In this,
Yeah.
they're just kind of like floating around. Like
Yeah.
we don't know how to move under here.
Yep.
Well, and I see
We've
them,
only
like-
lived under here thousands of years.
They're playing like Quidditch, underwater Quidditch or something
Yeah.
over there, and they're
Yeah.
like showing this like
Oh,
humanity.
that's actually
and,
an old like Aztec game, like the stone
and
ball
that's
through
fine.
the hoop. Yeah,
I get it. They're trying to build like culture of these
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
but again, so much of it was bent on you feeling bad more so for him being this enemy that has a purpose.
Yeah.
So he's
He's
not
just trying
really
to
a
protect
bad
his
guy.
They
people.
call
Right.
everybody
Yeah.
colonizers and stuff, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, dude, that was like forever ago.
But
Like, we're
that's
not
the thing. I mean-
colonizers anymore.
And so much of it was just, again, that you take the political elements, which were light. Thankfully, they were not.
they were in
force-fed,
this. They were much lighter than.
but they're not out of the. You're not completely escaping them. They're still there. There's undertones,
Well, that's
no
how
doubt.
Brandon, I was actually kind of shocked they didn't go with it, but one of his big things since the very beginning that he's ever existed in the 30s was like him hating the surface world for polluting the oceans. And I mean, that's a trope that's been around for decades. So,
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that I was actually surprised. It's like, I'm surprised they didn't throw that in there
Well, they
too.
couldn't throw that in there because it's in Aquaman. In Aquaman, they
true. They would've
throw
been
all the
100
remember they throw all of the trash in the sea back on land, and that's the
That's-
message to the
that's
surface
right.
world that we're tired of
I
your
guess,
crap
yeah.
being in the water.
They were so
and,
busy
and it
trying
was
to
well
avoid
done though. It was
comparisons.
well done. It was like a natural disaster. All this trash just shows up on the shore.
Instead,
And
in this, they gave him the whole like because there's not a whole thing about vibranium in the comics. Like that's still strictly Wakanda. And,
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny that that's what they went with in this. Is like, well, we'll give them vibranium too, and they're just trying to defend it because these people are out here trying.
Like
to,
we've had
you
it
know.
too for that long, and now you're not the only special one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but doesn't that change the dynamic of Wakanda now?
Yeah, it makes them
It
less
makes
special.
them not special anymore.
It's like, well, y'all are
Yeah.
less special. These
Well,
people
that
have it
that
too.
was the one political jab that I thought specifically, especially coming from Martin Freeman's character, who plays an American who is a Brit, and he was just like, "No, I was worried about what we would do with vibranium if we got a hold of it." When he was talking to Juliette Lewis-Dreyfus's character.
Yeah.
But anyway, and again, little jabs like that where I'm like, I just got to roll my eyes because I'm like, of course, classic Hollywood. But let's roll into headlines because this kind of,
Oh yeah.
talks a little bit about Disney and the direction they're headed anyway. And I think this will be a good topic to discuss. So yeah, Disney just so happens to be laying off a crap ton of people. Tons of people. How
Lots.
about that?
They got to cut some costs. They're not doing as hot as
Just like all the tech peeps.
That's what I was going to say. It's really funny that people threw a huge fit about Elon Musk laying people off at Twitter. And the very next week, Mark Zuckerberg announces 11,000 people he's going to fire.
Yep.
Amazon just announced the other day that they're firing another tens of thousands of people.
It's okay, but Bezos is going to be humanitarian now.
Yeah, he's going to give half of his
$125 billion away to charity.
Sure. We'll see.
What happened to all the jobs Biden created?
Yeah. But we're not in a recession or anything.
We're not in a recession.
Yeah, I know.
No
I know.
way.
All the signs, but we're not in it. But no, I think it's telling because I think this is obviously part and parcel. Yes, part of the economy and its fledgling, ability to get back on track with high inflation.
Yep.
But also, I think you take into consideration, Disney has faced a lot of backlash in the last few years. Ever since it's just kind of pushed certain agendas, and you've had people come out from the company who have been unabashedly for, pushing the not the not so secret gay agenda. How can we put in LGBTQ people? I was just read an article today where the newest movie that's coming out,
Strange World
is going to have the first teen gay characters in it.
Another
a
Pixar
teen
movie
gay
we won't be
romance.
seeing.
And it's funny how because they were pretty open about it with Lightyear because of everything going on in Florida and the Don't Say Gay bill. So they were like promoting. Well, you know what? We're putting this scene back into Lightyear, and we're going to put it bombed. And you notice they didn't promote this one.
Oh, of course
the
not.
same way, because after the backlash they got with
Ignorance is
Lightyear,
bliss.
it's like I feel like they were trying to get it under the radar. They didn't want people to know.
That's
it's like
right.
we'll release it, and then people will find out on their own, but it'll still make money.
That's right.
So I did think that was funny, and I do think this is obviously, like you said, it is also still a sign of the economy, especially the bubble that's bursting with all these subscribers on streaming services when people didn't have jobs.
And they just posted like 12 million plus gains in the last quarter. So, I mean, it's not like Disney Plus is doing terribly.
Well, think about it. During COVID, it's like people didn't have jobs, but they were getting paid buku amounts of money that they didn't need without the jobs. So they were spending money that they really weren't earning and oversaturating the market with money that was going to go nowhere. But this is the result of that. That bubble's bursting. People can't afford to keep all this stuff. People aren't, especially when they go woke like Disney. They're like, well, we have to make cuts, and Disney's one of them because we don't trust them anymore.
Right.
So I think these companies are feeling that hurt now. And
I think a lot of it too
lawsuits.
is when you get into the categories of even beyond the movie industry, whether it's their parks, whether it's amusement entertainers at their Disney World, Disneyland across the world and other countries that have these Disney parks. But also, I think a large majority of it too is we've not seen the big box office hits. Yeah, you have your tentpole franchises like the MCU, but even as they've drawn in some of the buzz with regards to being successful as an MCU film is expected to be, there's nothing stellar like a No Way Home this year. That cracked the box office and bursted $1 billion, and that was unheard of in the quote unquote pandemic era.
I'd say the most successful film so far this year has still been Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah,
and look at it.
Interesting that even after you've had 3, this is the third MCU film. Is it 3 or 4? You have Multiverse of Madness, Love and Thunder, and Wakanda Forever. Okay,
yeah.
So 3 MCU films, and we'll be. I mean, and it cracked. I think it was like 180 million in its first weekend, which again, great success. Not necessarily. I mean, it's more about where it's going to go from here. And I have no doubt in my mind Wakanda Forever is going to do fine. That's why nothing is opening
Thor
this
Love
weekend.
and Thunder did fine.
Yeah, right, but at the same time, even like with us, and we're typical old guard fan base of the MCU. You have to think, it's like, okay, what is Disney doing for me lately? And even if we're getting tired of the stale, same old with the MCU, you've got to then look at their other properties and IPs.
Well, they don't have anything else either.
Right. What else are they? What are they resting on? What are they actually putting forward to entice viewership?
They have, I think, burned the goodwill with just about every franchise. I mean, people are burnt out on everything. They're tired of Marvel. They're tired of Star Wars. Disney's original animated films, people no longer trust to watch. We they announced, Margot Robbie announced today that they scrapped the
Pirates.
reboot.
Yeah.
Because they know nobody wants to watch an all-female Pirates reboot without Johnny Depp. So Disney's really, I think they've screwed.
Well,
the
and you
pooch
got
on a
that
lot of
going
their
against them
franchises.
anyway.
Yeah.
You're going to bring out Pirates and not even have Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow, and after he just proved you all incredibly wrong for lambasting him and ousting him in the first place.
And I think a lot of the goodwill that people had with Disney, because for a time, even we praised Disney for a lot of moves they made, just a decade ago with Marvel and Star Wars. And they really have, I think, have bought into the identity politics and into going full all in on woke agendas that people just want to be entertained. They don't want to be preached at. They don't want Marvel, they're comic book movies. They're almost for little kids. Like, I'm not saying adults can't enjoy them, because I enjoy them, but that's the thing. You're trying to take something that shouldn't be that serious and enforce all of these thoughts and ideas that people just want to go watch Iron Man save the day, and they want there to be depth.
There used to be what made them popular, and what made them popular as comic books in general, and people read them, there were universal messages that touched upon all audiences, regardless of what your race, creed, or background was. It's like, the fact of the matter is, you could see these messages that transcended whatever your social status was, and they spoke to you in a universal way that would uplift you, give you hope, give you something to strive for. And I think that was kind of really what a lot of people were intrigued by when Iron Man first came out on the scene, and what we saw throughout. We saw the great set pieces, and we got intrigued by the scope of the MCU and how big it was going to be, with including all of these other characters that would then be seen in one movie like the Avengers, and the hype kept building. But there was still this idea, at least through the Infinity Saga, that there were core themes they would carry throughout that would allow you to interact with them in such a way that you felt, okay, I can see something in Iron Man. I can see something in Captain America, a character trait that was worthy of virtue. You don't see that now. It's riddled with half-witted comic relief and jokes about some of the leading characters, because it's like, well, we just know Chris Hemsworth's a really good-looking dude who's muscular, so we're just going to make Thor the butt of every joke or humorous, and it doesn't matter because he's Chris Hemsworth and he looks freaking handsome and he gets away with it. It's okay. It's like, no, you just destroyed the characters of all seriousness, and it's like you just made him a punchline. Who wants that?
No one.
I'm
sorry. I
agree.
Continue on.
No,
I know y'all have
agree.
other things to say. But.
No, I think it's funny in the article. It does say that they're boasting that they've got 12.1 million new subscribers, but they lost $1.5 billion in the last quarter.
Yeah.
So it's obvious that people signing up for Disney Plus isn't making them enough money to cover their losses. Like they're $1.5 billion is a lot of money, and I know it's not a lot of money for Disney,
but it is.
But I mean, at this point, maybe it is
enough for them to put freezes on employees and saying only critical and crucial roles are going to be hired. We're putting a freeze on just generic, across the board
laying
employees.
People off. It's like I think Disney needs to reevaluate what they're doing and say, why is this? I mean, the first place
think about this too. This is all under Chapek's direction.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that.
Disney was in a really
whether
good
it
place.
was a beautiful, thought out plan from Bob Iger's point of view.
I miss Iger. I didn't agree with him on everything either, but I thought he was a better businessman.
I agree.
Yeah,
I thought he at least played a straighter man in the public eye and knew what hot button issues not to touch.
Yes.
Or, let me put it this way: I don't know. Again, that all could have been coy business like Tim Cook. Tim Cook's very good, and he's got a team of PR execs that lead him through the navigating waters of what to say and what not to get into. Very milquetoast things that you hear from him on a surface level that you can't necessarily disagree with. That's what he's supposed to do. He's not supposed to rock the boat. He's supposed to just make good technology products. And anytime they step out of line, of course, this is when you're going to get into, regardless of which side you choose, you're going to get into some flat. And you're going to catch flack for it. And I think definitely with the whole, Chapek did not expect the DeSantis argument and what happened down there in Florida with the CRT and the Don't Say Gay bill. He was not expecting
That's
that
not
fight.
what the bill's called.
No, Don't Say Gay.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
I know.
But no, I agree. It doesn't say gay in the bill, not once. But it's funny that they use that instance to try to push back and fight in terms of the culture war and what they thought was going to get them brownie points.
Didn't work
And
out.
instead, they angered their base, which are actually the main base of what Disney is. It's like
Parents.
Yes.
of kids.
You like, it's like, yeah, Disney has branched out into other markets now, and they own Fox, so they can make, adult films there. But it's like, yeah, your
Hulu.
bread and butter was children. And when you start messing with what you're teaching children, and parents are not okay with it, you're going to feel the burn. And I do think they are starting to feel that backlash. I do think we discussed a while back how Bob Iger was actually against Chapek taking over, and maybe this is part of the reason. Maybe we see how Chapek runs things, and maybe Iger had a little bit of a no that he didn't think it would be best.
And that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I think from what I've seen in his responses to things and the way he's carried himself, he's very egotistical. He's very much, I'm going to say this because I believe it. And it's like, yeah, but you're also in charge of 190,000 employees and in charge of people who are actually supporting your product above your own ego. So maybe you should put that in check and actually fight for what they are wanting versus your own
He
internal
reminds me a bit
initiatives.
of Michael Eisner, because Michael Eisner was that way. It's everything has to be my way, whether we sink or not. If the ship's sinking, that's okay as long as it's being done my way.
As long as it sinks
Yeah.
the way I want it to.
Yeah, and that's kind of how Chapek reminds me. It's like my rule is complete, and if we don't go with my way, you're out.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the long story holds. I mean, as we pointed out, there's a lot of other businesses in this boat. It could be par for the course, and of course, something that we've talked about, or most people don't talk about right now in the economy of actually having been in a recession since July. But people want to try to rewrite definitions these days. But anyways, we're now seeing the effects of a poor run economy and the fact that it's catching up with the bigger companies, and people are starting to lay off employees. And obviously the entertainment industry is going to be one of the first hit, just like the tech companies, because they are, at the end of the day, as much as we put stock in them, they're luxuries, and they are things that we don't necessarily need. So it'll be interesting to see how this pans out in the future. Obviously, the big things that we expect from Disney aren't going anywhere. We're not going to. Who knows? Maybe some of the people that are getting the axe are the very ones that we're talking about that support and carry and wave this woke banner proudly.
That's
at
what
the
I'm
company.
hoping. I'm hoping it's the people who are making
virtue
these decisions.
signalers.
That would
Yeah.
mean that Chapek would have to be also kind of not okay with them people, and I don't feel like I think he's all
That's
in
fine.
on some of that stuff.
And it was funny because I sent the thing about that Pixar Strange World to my parents and my family. I'm the only one who's not married, don't have kids, but both my brother, sister-in-law, my sister and brother-in-law, and my parents, and all nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I sent it to them, and they were all like, well, thankfully we get your subscription, because I subscribed to it. And it's like, well, I only watch the classics. And they were like, well, we'll have to be mindful of what they watch. And also they were like, look, my mom said it best. She was like, well, money talks. And we'll see how long they want to dig their own grave. But eventually they're going to have to right the ship, because their stock price is already down. It went from 101 down to 85. It bumped back up to 95, but it's at its lowest point since 2018, which is when it really started slipping. So if they continue down this trend, they're going to have to rewrite it. Their stockholders are going to eventually come in and say, hey, guys, what are you doing with our money? We want some return here.
About a month or two ago, I was looking at their stocks because they were actually boasting about how their stocks have gone up within, I think, the last quarter. But I was like, okay, but if you look in the last couple years, like
gone down.
2018,
Yeah.
it's like your stocks went up in one quarter, but they've steadily been going down for the last 3 to 4 years.
Well, that's like
So
the
that's not
gas thing.
good.
It's like when
Yep.
gas goes up to $4.59 a gallon and then it drops down to $3.99.
See,
You
gas
can't,
went down.
You can't
Yeah.
claim that this administration
Yeah.
is doing what it can do to make gas prices
Well, when
better.
they say
you made them go up to begin with.
When they say we've gained 10 million jobs, it's like you don't gain jobs you lost.
Yeah.
No.
We lost 10 million
And
during
you're
the
getting them
pandemic.
back. Yeah.
You get those back. You didn't gain jobs.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
not how that works.
Yeah.
Well, we're about to lose a lot more.
It's like if I
so-
lost $10 in a bet and then I got $10 back, I didn't gain
You broke
$10.
even.
I
Yes.
broke
Yeah,
even.
You broke even, yeah.
Right. So
And
yeah.
we're not even breaking even.
Funny how the
That's true.
I'm telling you, simple math.
You lost 12 million jobs and got 10 million of them back.
Yep. Yeah.
So you lost 2 million jobs.
So we'll see what happens in the long run with Disney, but I think they're going to have to write that they're going to have to do a course correct pretty quick to get things back on track.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our next headline, which just so happens to be Hollywood destroying comedy. No, it can't be. That's not happening.
Actually, it's fun. I mean, I do appreciate everything he said. It's funny because I don't feel like he's made a good, funny movie in a long time anyways, but his gripes are all the same. David Zucker, who did Airplane, was talking about a recent project he was working on where they made a joke, something about, I think, the size of the woman's breast or something, and they said he couldn't do that. That was out of there. And he's like, well, that's tame compared to... I mean, you watch Airplane, you watch Scary Movie 1 and 2, which he did.
Naked Gun.
Naked Gun. Yeah, he was talking about, like, you can't make comedies anymore because everything has to be censored.
Well, like one of the jokes he made in the interview was they asked him, could you do Airplane today? And he said, oh, yeah, without the jokes. And it's like, I mean, that's what's so sad.
Yeah, he said, like, we could be as offensive as we liked, when he was talking about his directing career, which also included Scary Movie 3 and 4, and those were the bad ones. See, that's when I say he lost his touch. But
he also did An American Carol, which was more of a conservative mockery film, and it wasn't that good.
It wasn't that good. Yeah.
No.
He doesn't say, his point still stands. He makes a good point, but I just feel like the last movie he made that was actually funny was like 20 years ago.
Naked Gun series, I hate to say.
But he said, we went where the laughs were. We never thought that we were offending anyone, but if we were offending people, we knew we were on the right track.
Yep.
As time went on, it got to be the 90s and the 2000s, and it did change. And he's right. That's about that time is when things started. He said, we never worried about any of this stuff with the Naked Gun or Scary Movie films. And when you look at those movies, he's right. Yeah, they didn't. They had... There's nothing in Scary Movie that could be done today either.
No.
Oh, no.
Coachman.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
I laugh about that scene all the time.
That is one of the great...
When she comes into the office and he's like, I know all about them, and spreads his legs and the ball sack falls out. It's hilarious.
But you couldn't do that.
When it touches her touches her arm, he like comes up beside her and it touches her arm. She's like, ew. Like, get on that.
And it's like... But it's like...
So good.
And no wonder
They
people
can't
are
do that
also,
today because that's truth. Like, there's
Right.
really...
They
really
would
people
say,
like that out there.
That's a woman with a penis.
Yeah.
That's what they would say. I mean, the fact, I mean, I'm hearing like news reports where they say, well, if you're a man or a woman who stopped their period, what?
Yeah.
What? Like this is, it's so ridiculous. The world is upside down, man.
But I do think it's like him. Well, even I shared the article with y'all today. Even Emily Blunt was talking about, the strong female. We were just talking about this with Black Panther. She's tired of that trope. She said it's boring. It's dumb. She said you get on set and you have to act like this big, tough, macho person, and it's the same in every movie. She said she wants someone who's actually a real character with personality. She said the movie she's doing now, the character has an innocence, but she's not naive, and she's a more interesting character because she acts like a real
that's
woman.
one of the things about her most recent film, The Quiet Place.
Exactly.
She
plays
is a strong female lead, but she's vulnerable
But
and
she's
scared.
not. But she's not this big butch macho strong female lead. She's
not
actually a
Ripley
real
from
woman.
Aliens.
Yeah.
She's
Heaven forbid strong women aren't just stereotypical dudes.
Yes.
That's what you've made. You've literally made women dudes and
Yeah.
said, "Oh, that's what
They have
women
to be able
are."
to fight.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
It's like,
it's
what?
funny
No.
because like even reading her, like, and I'm sure there's politics that she believes in that I don't agree with, but even Emily Blunt, I was like, I agree with everything she just said there.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely, 100%. And I think it's a slow tide turning, and you've got to keep fighting the culture war. But it's just, and it's not just about beating the same drum of again. It's hitting the world with reality. I mean, you can't escape reality eventually when it comes down to it. And when you actually have to face reality, it hits you in the face bigger than any other
Don't look
example
up.
you can give.
Don't face reality.
Don't face reality.
It's funny they can preach that message, but
Well, because it's the ones who don't. But it's funny because I'm like with people just aren't showing up to the theater to reward it, and they wonder why. They keep churning out this crap, and it's like nobody gives it the time of day simply because it's not worth it, and they know that at the end of the day it's becoming more irrelevant because you're creating a fantasy with reality. And you're trying to portray it as, no, this can really be the case. That's kind of, again, going back to Wakanda Forever, that was what I felt like after I watched the movie, is I'm like, no, it wasn't overt and in your face, but it was the kind of subtlety that annoyed me because I'm like, you don't show or you don't actually acknowledge that a lot of these people a lot of these women in these roles could get completely demolished and wiped out by one strong masculine character. The one dude they focus on from the other tribe that was kind of comedic
M'Baku,
relief.
yeah.
They give him like this rhino type appearance on
He's a
screen,
Yeah.
gorilla
He's
appearance.
Ape-Man in the
But
comics.
he's
Beats
yeah,
his chest.
He's Ape-Man in the comics, but they won't call him that on film because
of
it's
course,
racist.
which
Yeah.
is so funny.
It's
I mean,
racist.
that's like,
You can't call him an Ape-Man. Why?
even if it's made by a black. Well, the black director could. That's what I think is so ignorant. It's like, no, they could. They could have gotten away with it,
but it's just
and it would have
funny,
been
yeah.
fine, and they would have said, "Well, that's not cultural appropriation because of
I think
white
it's-
guys."
Actually, it's
directing
actually
it.
man-ape, not Ape-Man. But
But
either way,
I get so.
either way, it can't do
Yeah.
it. It's racist.
It's nauseating how many times you walk into these movies and you're just, okay, fine, I'll accept it for the belief of the story. But when it comes down to this constant browbeating, and yet it's not backed up in any real way in real life, because again, it's a fantasy film. It's about superheroes. And it's like, yeah, I can maybe believe that a woman could do that if she is like Shuri, who sat here and drank this potion that made her superhuman. That's one thing to do. But when it comes back to the comedy argument, it's in the same vein. It's like they've tried to trick us into thinking that there's comedy. I mean, if you watched SNL recently, it's terrible. The only thing that was decent this past week was because they had Chappelle on there, and they had comics
And the
who
truth
were-
that he dropped.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
awesome. It was
Yeah.
fantastic. Just a little bit of the monologue
Yeah.
as to, we won't go into it.
I know. I'm just saying.
I agree. But it's funny that I'm like, you see comics on SNL boycotting the show because he's hosting. And I'm like, for one, how is that not racist by your own standards? And two, it's because you actually don't know what the hell comedy is.
And he's-
SNL's not been funny for years.
And you're right. He's been the funniest thing on there in years because he actually is still a true comic, unlike the ones that are actually on SNL.
Well, and why do you think we praised the Weird Al film last week?
Oh, yeah.
Part of what made it so good was it just returned a form of just good classic comedic humor.
Yep.
Both slapstick and wit. And I just, it pains me because you have some of these older classic I think of all the great David Guest film or Christopher Guest films, Best in Show, Mighty Wind, so many good ones that Drop Dead Gorgeous, all these parody films that had humor in it that definitely they could not have made these days.
Nope.
And same one especially goes for something like Zucker's Airplane.
Well, we
and
were
The
just
Naked
talking
Gun.
over next door while we were having cigars, and we're talking about American Pie.
Oh, yeah.
And how American Pie, if they make another one of those films, it can't do what the
Nope.
other films have done.
Nope. Superbad couldn't do that.
Oh, my
that
gosh.
came out when I was
Yeah.
like in junior in high school.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you couldn't do these movies because the raunchy humor pertains to the white cis male heterosexual. And it's baffling to me and ridiculous that this trope continues to get passed by. And these corporate executives in Hollywood are okay with it, saying, well, that time has passed. We've moved on. And it's like, oh, really?
We're
Have
wiser
we?
now.
Because you keep making these
Yeah.
movies and they flop because they suck. And then when you have tons of people coming out and say, actually, it was pretty funny. I laughed.
Yeah.
And then you watch it and it's like, at what?
Yeah.
You don't know
Well,
what
look at that-
humor
the
is.
Bros movie.
Yeah, Bros is actually really good.
I'm just saying, they touted that as like the next big romantic comedy.
Oh, yeah.
With gay dudes,
Yep.
and nobody went and saw it.
It went to video on demand in like 3 weeks.
Dude, I swear within a week I turned on Vudu to watch something and it was on the front page. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, gosh, this is
They're
terrible.
begging for $1.
Please, sir.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, I think it's look, there's tons of content out there and you can find it. It's just hard because it's not pushed anymore because the mainstream has decided to go woke and they want to cater to that crowd. And basically it's just going to continue to take people not showing up and not supporting it. Yep. But that's all I'll say on the matter.
That's all we got.
That's all we got. I don't even think we're going to talk about our last headline.
I don't want to say his name.
I don't either.
It's like you know how like the good news outlets won't say the terrorist name.
Yeah, don't say the shooter's name.
I don't want to say.
We don't want to give the
we
shooter
don't
credit.
want to give the shooter
We don't
credit.
give the shooter credit.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
You'll see the link if you click on the. Yeah. Don't give the shooter
Alrighty.
credit.
Let's go to our Vices segment. Ooh, Sean did it. I like that.
like it.
Vice.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite one.
I know. I like that Miami Vice theme.
Yeah.
Vice.
Just the open. It just reminds me of Tron.
Yeah.
The
There you
first
go.
Tron movie.
Yeah, there you go. I like that.
Yeah.
Tron.
Have you ever seen Tron?
He's never seen
I've only
Tron.
seen Legacy.
Oh my
I haven't seen the
gosh.
original.
No.
I know.
The original's
The
better.
terrible
Yeah, the
Jeff
original's
Bridges
good.
face in Legacy.
Yes,
Yes.
what they did.
It looked decent for the
For
day.
the time,
For
yes.
the time,
Yes.
it looked decent.
Yeah.
But it was very
It was bad.
early cutting edge,
Yeah.
like
Look,
trying
we
to
de-aged him.
yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. What's our vices?
All right. This is actually I think a good one.
I like this one.
Especially after for some people what last Tuesday did not turn out to be. But moving on. It goes into so many other things in life.
It does.
And it could very easily become a troubling vice. And that is the pursuit of pessimism.
There are definitely, I think, people who are never happy unless they're unhappy. I'm a very laid back and optimistic person, but I have actually kind of learned to be that way. Like, I've always been laid back, but the optimism, I had to go through plenty of pessimism and anxiety and depression before I learned that one. Because there was a time, I'd say during Bob Evans when name dropping old jobs, when I don't care anymore.
It's
I
fine.
don't care anymore. I bad math them now. When I think there was a point where sometimes where I don't think it was a conscious decision, but it was one of those things where it's like, you all are making me miserable, so I'm going to make everybody in this place miserable. Because it is a pursuit of, well, specifically there was a 13-day stretch where I went off on one of the managers. But anyways, it wasn't like, again, I think
It was the main one, wasn't it?
it was no, it was
Oh.
it was not this thing where again, where I thought like I'm going to purposely be an a-hole to make everybody's life a living hell. It's just one of those things where I was unhappy, so I acted accordingly. But yeah, definitely, it's easy to get like disenfranchised or downhearted about things, and to not see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think especially when you don't have, for me, I've learned being optimism is easy when you do have faith and you know that there's a higher power, God. But obviously, I think without that, it's hard to see that light sometimes. And it is easy when everything looks so bleak and when the future looks uncertain, and when you think no matter what we do or no matter what you do to get ahead, it never works out. It's easy to think to give up and say, well,
Hope is
why,
lost.
why bother?
Yeah.
Why try? Why? And I think that is, once you get that way, it's hard to get out of that hole. So definitely don't lose, I think, that hope and that faith. There is definitely a light, even if we don't see it right away. It sucks. But yeah, pessimism, I think, is a vice that people don't think of as a vice, but I think it can very easily be one.
Yeah. No, I echo everything you just said. In fact, it's really funny, but like at church Sunday, that was our pastor. He laid it down about last Tuesday and a lot of the things, not taking sides, but just saying like it's easy to look at the world we live in and feel disgust and distrust and an uncertainty. But if you do have a faith in Christ, you know that the victory has already been won, and there is a certainty that there's going to be a day where none of these things exist anymore. Getting to that day and keeping that faith is the hardest part. But he also pointed out, don't, even though it doesn't look like if you came out of last week with no hope, no matter, I guess, whichever side you're on, you're not going to find hope in a president. You're not going to find hope in any Republican or Democrat. You're not going to find hope in a certain senator or a certain candidate. The hope that you find has to be in God and in Christ. And if your hope is on betting on someone else to get elected and fix things, it's not going to happen.
Agreed.
Because even if they make things good for a while, the king of this world is not going to allow it very long.
Well,
Because-
we're all at odds with. Again, that's kind of the beauty and the majesty and the sovereignty of who God is that everything is orchestrated within His plan, regardless of the will of man. But it's easy to get caught up in the pangs of what we can and cannot control. And I think that's the key, is that it's like we're not really in control.
Yeah.
And so much easier is it sometimes to look at certain things as the cure of our ills, and to look at them as the problem solver of that moment. And granted, look, I mean, it's good to have value in institutions that you believe in, to fight for institutions you believe in. I think the body of Christ, the church, is no doubt that institution that any Christian this day and age should be fighting for. And I think that's where we should find our hope. I think there's a lot of lost ground there, because as an institution it has succumbed to, sadly, whether it be certain indoctrination from another type of religion, or another a religion of this world and worshiping things in this world, but I think that's where the fight has to take root first, in changing hearts and minds, and ultimately to know that, I think it comes down, we've brought this up on the show before about micro and macro issues, and I think it's so easy to get carried away. I think this day and age, with you can have pessimism in your daily life, no doubt, and I think everybody has hard weeks or tough days, but I think social media and even I think it's been kind of social engineered to a degree, just within how everything is so connected and how we know information so lightning fast these days, that you think on such a bigger level than you really have control of, than any one of us really have control of. And I think it's so hard that when we want things to go a certain way on a bigger scale and then they don't, then we feel powerless, and we immediately look in the mirror and think of a selfless, worthless, sense of being. And it's like, no. Our aspirations in setting ourselves up on that was always a recipe for disaster. Yeah. You should never ascertain that kind of perspective about life to the point of, again, it goes back to what we've talked about before too with Jordan Peterson about clean your room. It's like, if you can worry about cleaning your room first and get that responsibility down, then maybe you can level up to thinking a little bit outside your own house.
And help, create even more change.
Right, and elicit more positivity that you can push out into the world. But if you can't even start there, you don't have your own house in order, then you don't need to be thinking about going and changing the world on another scale at large.
I do think that's what makes pessimism such a dangerous thing, is because when you give into that, and I mean, like you said, everybody experiences it. I'm not saying, don't ever be
you fell into it hard.
You're going to
this week.
Yeah, you're going to. But when you give into it and you don't have your pessimistic moment, but then pick yourself up and move on and do better. But when you fully give into it and just give up, it's like, well, then you've lost. It's like, at that point, it's like, I get annoyed with the people who constantly live in that world and are just like, well, there's no point in trying to do anything because we're just, and it's like, well, at that point, then just go off somewhere and crawl in a hole and
be done.
And be done, because you've completely given up the fight.
I think at a certain point you can give up in other people. I think it's giving up on the fact that there's something greater than other people that's in control. That's where I fall.
I'm not disagreeing with that. It's like, yes,
but
definitely.
I think as a personal matter, I think if you in turn have that pessimism,
if you give up on yourself and then say, well, why should I bother even trying because nothing I do matters? It's like, well, then you're right. If you feel like nothing you do matters, then just crawl off somewhere and don't try.
A really dark turn, and I don't want to go down this road, but it has to be brought up.
Oh, man.
No, it's sickening that in Canada they have legalized euthanasia.
Yeah.
And you have mass amounts of people. Of course, I mean, the moment you legalize something, its usage goes up dramatically. And you have people who have suffered what they consider to be, an ultimate tragic circumstance in their life, to the point of saying that I don't want to live this life anymore. And I have to imagine that, how in the world, in a first world country, where you have the nicest amenities, the nicest possible living of any circumstance that has ever lived on this earth. Mm-hmm. We live in a time that has never existed to such a luxury that only those 10 years ago could even have dreamed of. My own parents' generation could have dreamed of. And you have people in other countries, third world countries, who fight for a dying breath every single day just to have another one.
And we have people who just
have people who give up and who call it quits because their feelings because we've created an emotional society that has rested upon this idea of feeling euphoric 24/7, and the moment that we come down from that precipice even a bit, then it is not worth living.
Well, we don't treat mental health anymore. Now it's about your own truth. So it's like, if you're depressed and you want to kill yourself, well, no, you don't need psychiatry and to get mental health. We'll just allow you to euthanize yourself, because why bother trying to help people?
But it doesn't even start there. We devalued life by killing children in the womb. Why not kill an adult too?
Well,
I mean, life doesn't matter enough to salvage it or give it value. To celebrate it. So let's just end it. I mean, I'm not surprised at all that Canada did that. I mean,
we'll
be the next ones to do it.
Euthanasia pods, and I'm sure those now that that's legal, it's like we're going to see.
It'll happen here too.
Actually, Futurama used to make jokes about suicide booths, like a telephone thing. That's going to be a reality. It's sad that something that was a joke, in the early 2000s, is actually a serious concept now.
And it does. It speaks to like you were just saying. It's just a greater need for love and God's.
It's a heart issue.
Grace and just His. Oh man, I mean, we just need a total entire change of perspective. I mean, you could have. I mean, proof is in the pudding, and it's like it doesn't matter how much you believe you've ascended in society and in culture to a degree that. Again, we stand on the shoulders of giants. We stand on the shoulders of those who would only dream of what we have today, just to see us squabble and complain about the pettiest stuff. And I mean, we all joke about it when we say first world problems. And, and again, not to say that there's not a certain level of criticism that can be had in any given circumstance. It's always to what degree. And I feel for any generation that has to face this circumstance of not having any hope, because we have those who now live and in such a moral decay in society that they truly have no aspiration to live beyond what they see in front of them.
Well, they don't. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, you actually you took away some of my pessimism, because I'm pretty much thinking America's gone to the wayside, but at least we're not Canada.
Yeah.
I mean, not yet.
I was going to say, I think...
Glad I can help.
It helps.
That's more positive
I know for me, it helps to reflect on the good things that I do have in my life, because not everything is bleak. And you're right, this generation now aren't taught to appreciate what they have. Nothing's good enough anymore. The media tells them nothing's good enough anymore. It's like, oh, the boomers have ruined your society and this and that. And it's like, no, if you actually look, like you said, at this date and time where we have the best healthcare, advances, the best technology, it's like there's a lot to be appreciative of. And I mean, it's fun. I mean, obviously I turn to God and the Bible first, and then I think about my family. But even something as simple as one thing that always cheers me up no matter how bad I'm feeling, and I've shared it with you guys before, you all love the moment from the movie too, but the speech Sam gives Frodo about there's some good in this world and it's worth fighting for. That whole speech, anytime I'm down, I literally will pull that speech up and I feel a million times better, because it's just so well done in film. But he's right. Now, if you reflect on the things you have in life, the things that God has given me, and knowing that God has my back and has a plan, it's like, if you actually if you try to be optimistic and happy and you look at the bright side, you can change your outlook and feel happier. That doesn't mean the bad things are gone, or that there's still a lot of work to do and there's still a lot of things that I'm pessimistic about, but at least I know that at the end of the day, I don't have to worry, because I know that I'm protected and safe.
And I know this may not speak to any secular viewers or listeners, but especially to the Christians out there. My brother brought this up too at one point, and he's like, it's very telling when you talk to a Christian who may have a pessimistic view on life, and it's like we're called to suffer. It's like Jesus suffered.
Yeah.
The ultimate death and the ultimate payment for our sins. So don't think for a single second that you have it worse than him. He paid that ultimate price for you to live. The idea of the Christian belief that there is life after death is that death is defeated. We don't find hope there in the hopelessness of death. We find the beauty in that there is life beyond this world, and that we are fighting for not only that little piece of that eternal blessing that we may have, but we fight for that even here on earth.
Yeah.
And that we will do so day in and day out as we get up and breathe every breath. And I think that we have to stay devoted and committed to that message overall, is that we have nothing to we have nothing to argue about when it comes to looking at it from that perspective. We have nothing, like you said, you're going to have bad days, you're going to have down and outs, but to live and breathe knowing that hope is that there is life beyond this one, that there is life in Christ, that we have him as our North Star, as him to point us through the darkness. I can't think of a more uplifting message.
Yeah.
And it's no doubt been an experience of mine, and I have no doubt in your all's life as well, an experience that, when there are times when it's a personal struggle or a day-to-day issue, there's nothing that amounts to uplifting my experience more so than going to the Word or going to God in prayer and knowing that as I'm there with him, it's all okay. Immediately the pain, the ilk, the troubles, they fade, they subside. Again, it's not to say that Christians don't have their days, that they don't have their problems or their doubts. We definitely do. Mm-hmm. But in that suffering, there is life. And I think it is that pick up your cross and follow me. Yep. It's that we are not called to live a life. And I've told people this before, jokingly, but in a very honest and deep way of saying, those who are new Christians who've come to the faith and they're very excited and happy. And I'm like, hey, I'm with you. I'm glad. I'm happy you're amped. I've been there.
Yep.
But it doesn't get easier.
Yeah.
It gets that much harder from here.
Target on your back.
Because you live in a world that despises you, that goes against you, that, look, and I look at it as, yes, America is not the same country that I grew up in as a kid, but fighting to get it back to something that even resembles, that God-fearing nation and that Judeo-Christian values that we had.
That's what it comes down to.
I mean, to get back to that is going to be a struggle, but we also have to realize we live in a world where the more luxuries we have and the more that we take our mind off of that perspective, the more we think we can live a life without God, we are going to continually to go down the path where we feel like we don't need him. And it does not shock me or surprise me that we live in a country this day and age with the richest resources in the world, and we do not have that Judeo-Christian principle, anymore. Yes, we have it at our foundation. I'm not saying it's eroded completely, mm-hmm. but it is definitely not a spectacle or a main, inference on people's lives day in and day out, as I think it used to be for a large group of the population in this country. And again, that's a war we have to wage because that is what the devil is doing. This is his domain. The earth is his domain, and we have to fight it every single day. But in saying that, it's not that we rest in the pessimism of that fight. No, we wage war knowing that we have the upper hand. We have Christ on our side. We have the light of God that we bring into the world, the light of truth. And we got to keep it every single day, no matter what's to come. And with that, I think we should end this episode.
All right.
Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war.
Good. Oh, man. Great song. There you go. Great hymn. Great hymn. Beautiful. Alrighty, guys. Right there at the bottom of the screen, you can like, share, subscribe on all of our social media accounts. Red Moon Book, Red Moon Tweet, Red Moon Picks, and you can just www.youtube.com/@RedMoonProductions. That's it. We now have our own handle. It's cool.
What are we reviewing next week?
We're doing, it's an early one, an early Christmas movie.
It's not really part of our Christmas
but theme, and it's coming out early enough that, and Thanksgiving's next week.
It's fine. I mean, I think it's fine when it's releasing. It's just, it's a bit, well, I guess we should announce it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
A Christmas Story, Christmas.
Ralphie! I'm not really looking forward to it.
I love A Christmas Story, but
classic.
I don't trust Hollywood to do justice to a classic anymore, especially after Hocus Pocus 2. No.
We can only hope that corporate
What's
overlords.
It called? A Christmas Story?
Christmas?
Yep.
I know, it's not the best title. I know. And they even got Peter Billingsley to come back as Ralphie. Yeah, he's returning.
A lot of the original cast, except for the woman who played the mom, because
she's like 90 or something.
Well, the original actress is dead.
Oh, whoops.
So
I thought she was still alive. I thought the old man was dead.
He is too, but they're not recasting him.
He died in the movie.
He's going to be dead in the movie. Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see what happens, but ultimately, I'll put it this way. I do want to. I'm intrigued.
I want to check it out,
But I
because
hope it's not a
yeah.
complete bust. If it's not a complete bust, I'll be somewhat entertained.
Yeah.
I love the original. I just don't know that we have the same morals and values as the original anymore
just
in
talked
Hollywood.
about
So
this.
yeah, so
True.
yeah.
Part of that pessimism,
I'm
seeking in.
I'm pessimistic about it.
Hey, that's why here at Red Moon we bring a little light into your world each week, and we hope to maybe someday make movies that turn around this pessimism. Maybe someday it'll happen. Hashtag one day.
Hashtag.
But also at the bottom of your screen, our email address,
Yeah.
right down there. Hold on, pointing to it over there at the bottom, like on that camera up there.
Oh.
yeah, it's like look down at the screen
Right here.
And now, you were close, Sean.
Did
now
I?
it's on the bottom of your screen.
My screen?
Yeah.
It's bouncing around.
Oh, you went through it. Oh gosh. Oh, he's tickling it.
Can I- where'd it go?
Oh,
Can we
like a
read-
Chinese finger trap.
Can I read it? Can I read
Yeah,
it?
you should do it.
Always.
RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
Just beautiful.
yeah.
Every time he reads it, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, just get a chill up my leg.
Oh. No, that was the dog.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was her.
That was
Okay.
the dog licking you.
Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. So, yes, please tune in next Tuesday live, 9 p.m. Eastern, right on the YouTubes, the Facebooks, the Twitters, Rumble, all over the place. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal vanilla steam.
Vanilla Steam.
Oh, normal new host.
Vanilla Steam.
There we go.
You ruined it.
And
You ruined it.
you don't even talk anymore.
I don't.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.